What's up, Katie Vaz, and welcome to the channel. This week in this video I'm going to be sharing some fun beginner friendly sewing hacks and tools that I think you will find useful once you get into this. Some of these I found on social media and others I got while watching and checking out other sewing creators online, so I highly recommend you watch this video till the end and you might just learn something new. So if you'd like to find out what these sewing hacks or tools are, make sure to keep on watching. I have a part 1 for this style of video as well. I'm going to link that in the description box if you haven't seen it already. But without further ado, let's get into this video. The first tool I'm going to be sharing are pattern weights, and these ones I have here comes in a pack of about 20 and it has a diameter of 2 inches. They are nice and heavy because it's all metal, and I found that I use these weights a lot when I'm working with really fine fabrics that I don't want to have to pin down. I just put the weight on the pattern, and even if I cut with a scissors or a rotary cutter, I find that the weights just keep the patterns in place. Everything I share in this video I'm going to link in the description box down below. The second tool I'm going to be talking about is a rotary cutter. This I tried out when I was in fashion school, I won't even lie, but I sort of rediscovered it again and I am in love. If you are someone who works a lot with fine fabrics, stretchy fabrics, and you cut a lot of curves and corners, this is so handy and so useful, and they're really affordable to get online. You can get it and get like replacement for the blades in case it breaks or gets blunt, and it works really well with the pattern weight once you sort of lay everything nice and flat, and you end up with really crisp corners. Next up is a cutting mat, which I think you would really need if you're going to be using a rotary cutter, and this one I have here is a really big one which I just place on my table, and it's A1 size. If you're someone who uses like your living area or your dining area to cut your pieces, you would need something to protect the surface of your table from whether it is a rotary cutter or this tracing wheel here. The cutting mat has you covered. Now this hack I actually picked up from a fellow creator on Instagram called Sewing Julie, and this one would help you to stitch down patch pockets, especially one that has curved bottoms like this one here. So once you've cut out your pattern piece, I recommend cutting it on a thick cardboard paper and then cut your pocket with the seam allowance around so you have something that looks like this. So once we have this here, I'm going to take this to my ironing board, and we're going to be using the cardboard to iron down the corners of the seam allowance. Now I'm going to place that inside a thin cloth, and with the thin cloth sort of like fold in the top, the side, and the bottom edges of the patch pocket. And by doing this way, you essentially just need to go back in and iron around the pocket, and this would automatically press down all of your seam allowances, so you don't need to think of if you're pressing it correctly or if you have it folded correctly. That's cardboard is going to keep the corners nice and sharp. If you press it in place, you essentially just need to take this to your machine and sew it onto your garment. First off, I will go back in and just stitch the top end close so we have a nice folded corner on the top of the pocket, and after doing that I would essentially pin this patch pocket onto my garment. So this could be on a shirt, on a dress, on trousers, wherever I want this to be, and just sew from one end all the way around the pocket till I arrive at the other end. I suggest you use some pins to just hold the pocket in place as you sew, because that will just prevent it from moving around as you turn the pocket as you're progressing and stitching across all the way around till you reach the end. Once I'm done stitching, I recommend going back in to press down all of the seams to relax the edges, and as you can see, it looks relatively nice and tidy, and the pocket looks so gorgeous and stunning. Now the next hack I'm going to be talking about is one that would help you sharpen your blunt scissors. If you are like me and you collect scissors for fun, I don't know why I have so many scissors, but after a while, some of them will start to get blunt. One thing that I've learned is to cut through tin foil or foil paper with the blunt scissors. So cut from the beginning all the way to the end, meaning open the scissors wide and then just keep cutting through and cutting through. And it's basically the interaction of metal against metal, so it sharpens the edges of your scissors. Do this a couple of times before you test it on your fabric, and you are sure that you're going to have a much sharper scissors. Now, a tip I would recommend is to have a separate scissors for cutting your fabric and a separate scissors for cutting your paper. Now, the next thing I'm going to be trying out is a flat felt seam, and this you would commonly find on your jean trousers, denim jackets, any kind of seam where it is meant to have like a double stitching in quotes. So I'm going to be starting off by just stitching two pieces of fabric together, having an even seam allowance across like so, and after stitching it down, I'm going to trim down one side of the seam allowance. I would say about at least half. So once you've trimmed that down, we're going to go in and fold over the taller seam allowance to conceal the edge or the raw seam, and then you go in and do like a very slim edge stitch, closing off that seam and finishing it off such a way that you don't have any edges showing on the inside and on the outside of your garment. So this is a great seam to consider if you want to create like a reversible piece, or you don't want to have any raw edges showing on the inside of your garment. Next up is stitching down a button with a sewing machine, and for this I'm just using these simple navy blue buttons here. And to be able to do this, you need to set your machine to your zigzag stitch, and after doing that, remove the footer that is on your machine and drop your feed dog. Your feed dog is that wheel that allows your fabric to move as you sew. You want to have it nice and flat so you can push your button and your fabric underneath. So once you drop the edge of the footer holder in place, you essentially just roll the machine by hand and you put your finger on the reverse button to ensure that you are able to go through the two loops a couple of times before you turn the button the other way around, and essentially repeat the same thing to stitch down the button. Now this is what it looks like on the right side, and on the other side it actually looks nice and tidy. So this is one way that you consider stitching down your buttons if you have a lot to do, or you're not just in the mood of doing needle and thread technique of sewing buttons to garments. Finally, we have sewing pegs. This one was plugged to me by my mother-in-law, and I have never looked back since then. Now I find that I reach for these when I'm working with really fine silks, fine chiffon, any fabric that I know if I pin through, the thread of the fabric would break or would have like a distress line going through, or with a really thick material like felt or leather or any fabric that a pin cannot essentially pass through. So I essentially just peg down necessary points when I am sewing, and I find that I use these like a whole lot. They're really affordable, and you can get like a pack of a few different pegs online at a really affordable price. So those are all of the hacks I've shared in this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you know any other like beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert hacks that you think that we should be aware of, please share in the comment section down below. If you know any other hacks, videos, or tutorials, share as well. That way we're able to collectively learn and grow together. If you enjoyed this video, let me know as well. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't joined the K-Diverse fam already. And with that being said, I will see you guys in my next one. Until then, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are. Bye.